Hello and welcome to the Women of Power show with myself, your host, Lavelda Vincenzi. This is the show where we explore the essence of women's power. What is it that makes us these powerful beasts out there in the world? I don't know why I said the word beast, but you know what I mean. What are the tools, strategies, and techniques that we can use to really show up powerfully in the world? In order to support me in supporting you, I'm interviewing powerful women from all across the globe, and today's guest is no different. She originally built her career as an international development banking before going on to start a business as a trauma coach, a trauma recovery coach. Please welcome my guest today, Miram Njuko. Hello, Miram.
Hello, Novelda. How are you today?
I am so delighted to have you here on the show today because your journey is one that, let's say, is inspirational and also something that might touch the hearts and minds of many women and others out there who perhaps are in a situation which really is not serving them. So for people who are listening and watching who perhaps have never come across you before, well, firstly, you're not going to forget her name by the time we're done here today. But for those people who have never come across you before, can you give us like a little potted history, just the brief version in terms of what got you into leaving what I'm sure was probably a very successful career path to move into trauma recovery coaching?
Yes, so trauma recovery coaching has become the essence of what I do and what I want to do. Since I discovered the adverse childhood experiences study and since I gained knowledge of trauma and trauma recovery, I just want to spread the word because I come from Cameroon where we don't talk about feelings, we don't talk about trauma, even though it's widespread. And now that I have this knowledge, I just feel like everybody should know. For the people who went through trauma to get to start their healing journey, and for the kids growing up in Africa today to be nurtured in the way they should be to become the unicorns of tomorrow and create solutions that will actually uplift the continent. My own journey, I went through a lot of trauma, but I managed it by working really hard, going to school, and in 2009, I graduated from the London School of Economics with a master's degree in international political economy. And I went into international development, first working for the World Economic Forum, and then I decided to join private banking in Switzerland, where I worked for a Swiss private bank and JP Morgan. And then I branched back out into international development and worked for the United Nations and recently for the MasterCard Foundation. And all through, I was not really being myself. I was showing to the world what I think the world wanted to see of me, trying to hide my traumas, how I really felt and who I really was. And I was not being in my power. I was not really in my own potential because there was all this hurt, unaddressed hurt that I used work and achievements to cover. And when I was pregnant with my third daughter and I saw a therapist and she told me, read the book Trauma and Recovery that was written by a Harvard professor in the 90s, I realized that, oh, my reactions come from the childhood trauma I went through that is unresolved, that I still live with. And when I gained that knowledge and I've been studying trauma, I'm now doing a trauma recovery coaching certification. I just feel like we should all know about trauma. I did not know how I felt. I couldn't even label if I was angry, sad. Everything was just all mixed up because I didn't learn all these things. We focus on academics. We teach kids how to do math, how to do geography and English, and we don't teach them how to know what they feel and actually process emotions, sit with their emotions. So I'm really passionate about this. I'm a mom of 3 girls, and I don't want to pass my own trauma to them. I want them to have a different life, that I break the cycle of generational trauma that has been going on in my family. Yeah.
Wow. Were you aware? Because, I mean, the story sounds, there's lots of pieces to how you came to be doing what you're doing right now. But were you aware that you were traumatized? I mean, we can talk about overcoming trauma, but sometimes people, because we're being really strong and getting through it, we sometimes don't even recognize that there is any trauma to deal with. Did you have an awareness that there was trauma in your family, or was it something that just had not occurred to you until this therapist suggested reading a book?
Actually, I knew I had a difficult life, but I just felt like, hey, everybody has a difficult life. I should just kind of get over myself and, keep pushing and keep achieving. And but I was aware that I was not raised like other people because I had a lot of shame around the person I was, the person I really was. I just felt as if I shared who I really was, people would run away because I couldn't answer simple questions. At university, I wouldn't, if someone asked me, where is your dad? I didn't, like, sometimes I would go to the toilet and cry because that's how difficult it was for me. Because I just felt as if I couldn't say, yeah, my dad, he died in 2005, but he left behind 76 children. How do you start saying that to I don't know, a young woman at a Swiss university where it's a banking city? Some kids, they come to school with their Louboutins, and then you don't, it doesn't match the environment. So I just felt really out of place. It took me a long time to be able to own my story and accept that's what happened to me, but it doesn't define me. Oprah says, with trauma, we have to ask the question, what happened to you, not what is wrong with you. And for the longest time, I felt something was wrong with me. So I was hiding behind achievements, trying to feel worthy by achieving the next thing. But it was never enough because I just kept achieving and achieving and achieving, but I still felt empty inside. And what I needed to do is go back and accept the things that happened to me and process them, to be emotionally more balanced and more myself. And that's what I've been doing, and it's just been amazing. I just want everybody to be able to do that, because if not, I think I would have passed. I would have, living with unresolved trauma. We take a lot of decisions based on fear, based on on other things than from our power, from inner intuition. We're not in tune with ourselves. We're looking for validation outside of ourselves rather than going inside and looking for that validation right inside, because we have it in us. We are all born valuable. We are all born worthy. But the thing is, when many things happen in life, like trauma, we forget that we are valuable and we are worthy. And we think that by achieving so many things outside, it will make up for that wound we have inside. And actually, it's never enough. So, but it took me a long time to really accept that it's trauma. I think until 3 years ago, I was still saying, yeah, it was difficult, but, and many trauma survivors, the first thing they say is, yeah, well, I didn't really go through trauma, but this happened. And it affects them. It affects the way they show up in the world. It affects their confidence. The thing is, it affects everything. It affects the way we show up in our relationships, if we have partners, in our friendships, at work, lack of confidence, inability to take feedback objectively, fear of authority. I was scared of my bosses, their evaluation, because actually it brought me to childhood when I was helpless and I didn't have a choice. So it's all of that, realizing what's behind, make us it gives us our power back, because then we can, when I see that I'm excessively scared of my boss's evaluation, I know that it comes from my personal trauma when I was a child and I was in situations where I was helpless and in front of adults. So I think it's giving people their power back, or in a relationship, if you're triggered by your partner, then you know that, okay, what he's saying is triggering me. Then you don't just unleash anger, or you sit with it. So okay, I'm triggered. I know why I'm triggered. I know because this brings this kind of emotion in me. So it gives back people, their power who've been through trauma, and for them to lead a more fulfilling life, I would say. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think there's so much you said there that I think is so powerful. Using work and achievements as a place to hide. And I think it's almost like I want to have the complete opposite of what I experienced. I'm looking for that safety and that comfort that I didn't have, that was lacking when I was a child, and therefore I'm making up for it by really working very hard. But but there's something in there where you touched on, which was even though the outside starts to look better, because I'm still ashamed of my past, and it's almost healing that shame. Um, I'm kind of curious to learn more about the shame side of things because I kind of feel like trauma and shame, they're best cousins, aren't they? They sit right next to each other. They make each other comfortable. We don't. There's a reason not to approach it and not to look it in the face because it has you feel less than. How have you moved past that to come to a space where you're much more open to sharing something which before had you feeling like you didn't fit in? How does my story sit comfortably in Switzerland? And you're now in a space where you're able to share that. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a very important question, and it's what hold people back from looking into their traumas. Because looking back or admitting that maybe my parents did their best, but they still failed me in certain ways, it's so uncomfortable that people don't want to go there because it means they are blaming their parents. But actually, different feelings can sit side by side. We can love our parents, but still admit that maybe they failed us in these ways, so that it gives us the opportunity to heal and actually go forward. Because when we don't do that, then the blame is on us. We are wrong. There's something wrong with us. When that's not the case, some things happen. Maybe, I don't know, if we take an immigrant family where the parents have to work really hard, maybe they were not there in the evening and the child was scared and was alone at home, and then it has an impact. We can admit that they tried their best to put a roof over our head and feed us as children, but today, the fact that we were kind of neglected, it has an impact on us, and then we can heal. For me, it was really the shame of my background, the shame that people in my family were not educated. They ended school early. They were really kind of illiterates. And then the shame of immigrating to Europe and then seeing everybody around with parents and functional families and living in dysfunction. And also as a girl child in Cameroon, I went through a lot of stuff. So I was hiding all of that in shame because I felt like something was like deeply wrong with me. But the day I understood that actually it's really all of these things that happened to me, and I really fought a good fight of achieving, surviving, finding solutions, getting scholarships, going to school, looking for jobs, like with no one, no mentor, no one in front of me to, because you don't even know you need a mentor. You've never had one, so you just keep trying. But when I became a parent, I have 3 daughters of 7, 4, and 1 year old. So already having daughters triggered my own traumas. Like the things I was trying to run away from, they all came back because then I see my little self. When my first daughter, for example, was 3.5 years old, 4 years old, it was triggering for me. That was the age I was abandoned by my mother after she ran away from my polygamist father. So when I see a 4-year-old in front of me, I see how small, how tiny their universe is. And then realizing that at that age, I was already fending for myself, it's very triggering. So that's why we need to work on these traumas, because it could push us away from, it could have pushed me away from my daughter, because it's the feeling is really overwhelming. And even seeing a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old and imagining all the things I had been through at that age. So really taking that, okay, this was a bit too much, because I tried to tell myself, oh, it's no big deal. People go through stuff, now my life is better, I will just move forward. But the thing is with unresolved trauma is that if we don't go into it and take the bag of nuts and take everything one by one and walk through the emotions and walk through the trauma, it will catch up with us at one point. It could be at 40, 50, 60, it always comes back. We cannot numb it with achievements and my life is better today, let's just forget. Many people told me, but why don't you just forget the past? And then I was feeling so broken, but why can't I forget the past? The past is in the past, and then I'm still living in the past. But I know that it's the trauma, it doesn't just go away. Like that overwhelm, those moments where things happened to me and I was totally overwhelmed. My brain couldn't process what was happening to me, that I was stuck in those moments, those little moments, and there were many in my life. And today, to just stand and then, I used to dress, I used to have like 8 perfumes, depending on my mood. I would wear this perfume or that perfume. And even looking on photos, when I look back at my old photos, it's as if on different photos I have a different face, but I think it's all my emotions that I was trying to repress inside. They would show up on my face somehow, and then I would put my perfumes to try to make it light, but the core was there, the heaviness was in my heart, and I was trying to hide it from everyone. But I would say that the questioning started when I had my first daughter. No, even before, I already went to therapy. When I finished university, I started going to therapy here and there, but the word trauma came when I became a parent. I wanted to really be a better parent, not totally shift to the other extreme, and then start giving my daughters everything and then not teach them or not discipline them, but I give them set boundaries for them, because that's also like, oh, I didn't have this. No, now you can eat 10 cupcakes for breakfast, So not to, sorry, that was an extreme example, but you see, not to do the opposite and actually have a balance of, okay, maybe we don't eat cupcakes for breakfast. Maybe we could eat cupcakes when we come back from school, so that it's the afternoon snack, like actually educating them, right? Yeah.
Love it. And I love that one of the driving forces for you is about not passing the trauma on, because I think often we think the answer, if we haven't faced it, right, the answer is to go the other extreme, right? I didn't have it. I was deprived of these things, so I'm going to go the other extreme and just have loads of it because I didn't have it when I was a child. And so that's a really kind of great place to look. Regardless of where you're at, we just kind of know too much of anything is never good for us. So, trying to resolve it or work past it by overloading in the complete opposite of it is really not a healthy place to go. This show, as you know, is the Women of Power show, which really brings me to understanding, and with you in particular, I'm really, really curious to understand your idea of what makes a woman powerful. Because I think before we can dive into power, we need a definition of power. So from your perspective, Miram, what do you think it is that is the essence of a woman's power?
For me, the essence of a woman's power lies in herself. It's her intuition. It's her inner force, And I think a woman is really powerful when she can tap into that inner force. She can look into herself to make decisions for herself, or to take her decisions with her inner compass and not from everything that is around family, work, and really, I think that's when we have the best, we take the best decisions, and we bring our best selves to rooms, be it the boardroom, be it a CEO meeting, be it as a parent, or yeah. So I think if we can empower women to find their self, because sometimes with what life can throw at us, we tend to forget who we are. If we can find ways to come back to ourselves and then actually show up like, this is me. I tried to be somebody else for the longest time. I thought, oh, if people hear me, I sound smart, I talk about this, and I write reports. And now I know that that's not the best Miriam. That's not the powerful Miriam. The powerful Miriam is this Miriam who can say her truths and who can tell her story, because that's how the powerful Miriam is the Miriam who connects with other people. And I was trying to run away from that. So if we can tune into ourselves and really see who we are and bring that ourselves to the world, I think we'll create magic as women.
Oh, and aren't we here to create a huge amount of magic as women, just trusting, tuning into our own internal intuition? Here's the killer questions though, Miriam. So for a
Mhm.
woman who works as a trauma coach, who herself has gone through trauma, is overcoming it and now teaching others how to do that by teaching how to recover from your own trauma, I'm now curious about the essence of your power. So I ask all guests on this show to share their personal power tools. And there's three I'd like you to share, your top three. If you're
Mhm.
watching for the first time, this is how I define them. If you were to take everything that you've done today in your life and business and boil it down to literally just three core things that you say have been fundamental to the success that you have had today in life and business, what would those three things be? Let's start with the first one. What would you say is your top power tool?
I would say the power of habit over moods, because we can have many moods. We can have, sometimes we wake up, we are in this mood or that mood. But if I have an objective, I have a goal, I set my intention, I have a plan. I follow that plan despite my mood if I'm convinced this is what I want to achieve. Because, yeah, moods can change, but if we have an objective, we have to have a habit, a practice of doing a little bit every day to achieve what we want to achieve. Number two, I would say to trust our intuition, to trust what we bring to the table, and to trust the people, the person, like to always ask, is this right for me? Is this the right decision? Does this resonate with my values? Always trust your values. That has guided me since childhood. There are many things that happen in my childhood, even that I just felt it didn't make any sense. For example, I had a young cousin. He was my age. He was a boy who would play outside for a long time, and then when we came home, I was asked to serve him food because he was a boy. And then, even though I would do it, I would say in my head, but this stupid little Abdul, he's been playing with me. He's as silly as I am. I don't see why I should be serving him. This doesn't make any sense to me. So, with that mindset, I've gone through life. And if it doesn't make sense, I always ask questions. I keep an open mind, ask questions. Don't be scared. Don't take decisions because someone said it's like that and then it's just like that. Ask questions. I can give another example where when I was a student in Switzerland, I used to always receive scholarships. And one year they decided to give me a loan instead of a scholarship. So that because they had changed the rules, it was the same for everyone. So everyone received a letter that this year you're getting a loan. I felt, I'm like, my situation has not changed. I don't have more money. I'm still even, it's worse. My situation is even worse than the year before. Why would I accept a loan when I don't even know if I will succeed in my studies? So I wrote a 2-page letter where I'm asking questions like, if my situation is like this, why do you think it's better for you to give me a loan? And I received a call from the office asking me, so is this a recourse? Are you opposing this decision? I'm like, no, it's an explanation I'm asking. I received another letter the week after telling me I had a scholarship of 10,000 Swiss francs. It's the same amount they wanted to give me for the loan. So it's always not taking things as they are, and if we think they are not right, asking questions. I would say, yeah, and trusting ourselves that we know that they are not right. That's my second point, and my third point is to have community around us. And research has shown that even if we don't have we don't have people in our vicinity we can go see, just knowing that you have your friends, even if they are scattered around the world as my friends are, just knowing that you have them with you, the trick for the brain is the same as having a group of friends that you go see every weekend. If you have people you really feel connected to, even if you don't see them often, but you're connected, these are your people, that it serves as community. And these people, you can always go to them when things don't go well, or to brainstorm, and and to, yeah. So I see community is a third point, and it's also very important because human beings are made for living in community and not by themselves. So those are the three things I tap into. Yeah.
Your wisdom, I mean, just those three things, it's not just those three things. Like this whole interview, what's become so apparent is the amount of wisdom that you have. And I just want to commend you in terms of what you've done from the background that you've come from to become the person that you are today is purely inspirational. And so for people who are watching or listening, depending on how they're tapping into this, and are now thinking, okay, this Miram chick, I need a little bit more of her in my life. What is the best way for people to connect in with you?
Yes, so I blog. I have a trauma recovery coaching business. So you can find me at miramnjuko.com. So my name combined .com. So you find me there. You can book a discovery call where we can chat for 30 minutes, or you can read my blog posts about, I blog about aspects of childhood trauma that has affected me. I also have a podcast called Free Your People Podcast with my co-host Candace, and we talk about overcoming childhood trauma, surviving and thriving. So it's amazing. And I've written a memoir, Child of the Grasslands. That's the region I was born in Cameroon. Surviving childhood and finding my worth. So yeah, it's coming, and I'm very happy about that, because I think in it I managed to show how a child feels when feels inside when they're going through trauma, through the events. But it's not only about that; it's also about resilience and also freeing ourselves from shame. So, yeah. And for example, an example of shame, the fact that my father had 76 children, I've carried that as my shame, but it's not my shame. I didn't have 76 children, and that's not my problem. I'm just one of the 76, but at the end of the day, that's not really my problem, right? But it takes a lot of time to put those things in their right place, yeah. So if you need
Beautiful resources.
reach out to me.
And please do. What fabulous resources to connect in with Miram. If something in this program has touched you, or you know somebody who really could do with a deeper dive into some of the services that Miram has, then please do make sure that you get in touch. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to us on the podcast, you'll find all of the details within the show notes. Miram, thank you so much for joining today. Your expertise and wisdom that you've shared has been absolutely exquisite. And I'd like to give you just maybe like 30 seconds. If you just had like a little short snippet that you would like to leave us with today, something that people can take with them, what would be your closing words to our listeners?
I would say, go back to your families if you feel stuck in life, and ask questions. Ask questions about, know the story, know your stories, know the story of your family. Don't hesitate to choose a different path, to reject the family template and do different. And there's nothing to be shameful about in life. Either we're coping from our traumas, even if when we do things that we think are shameful, it's just coping. We can go from there to thriving by doing the work. So yeah, be yourself, trust yourself, and just know you're worthy. And yeah,
be yourself, trust yourself, know you're worthy, and don't be afraid to choose another path. That is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for watching and listening up until this point. If you're on the podcast or you're listening on YouTube, either of those, please make sure you hit the subscribe button so you're notified when there is another episode added. It's been wonderful speaking with you today. You've been watching or listening to the Women of Power show with myself, Lavelle de Vincenzi. Until next time, ciao!